What's up, you guys? Tech Chucker here, and I've got a review for you of the Marvel Legends first 10 years anniversary series 3-pack Iron Man Mark L, Thanos, and Doctor Strange. Now, I am pretty excited to have mainly the Thanos and the Doctor Strange. The Iron Man, I already know I'm not really that big of a fan of, but these are some really cool figures, and I really like these 10-year anniversary packs, but you know, there's a few issues, so let's go ahead and crack this one open and take a closer look. Alright, let's go ahead and talk articulation on these figures. I'm going to kind of go through these really fast. We're going to start with Iron Man. Iron Man is probably the most problematic out of all of them, but his head is on a ball hinge. He can look up about that far. He can get his chin down that much. He can look side to side, no issues with that, and there really is no tilt. In the shoulders, he's got standard ball hinges. Those work pretty good, and he is able to rotate those all the way around. He's got an upper bicep swivel that works pretty good. He's got double jointed elbows, which actually work pretty decent, I would say. Not too bad. And then in the wrists, at least on these hands, and make sure that you're careful if you haven't opened yours yet, there is no hinge, so it's just a peg. So when I first took this guy out, I was trying to bend this down. You can't. There is no hinge in that wrist, so be careful. There also in the torso is no torso. There's no ab crunch or anything, and it's because of this electronic piece that lets his chest light up, which is cool, but I guess I would have rather had the articulation. There is also no waist swivel, which is another bummer. Moving down into the hips, he's got T-jointed ball joints in the hips, and he's got about that amount of range of motion, which isn't too bad. He's able to kick forward about this far, about 90 degrees. That's actually pretty good. And kicking back, not really all that much. He does have an upper thigh cut that works pretty good. Double jointed knees, those work pretty decent. And then no boot cut, no shin cut or anything like that, but he does have an ankle hinge, and he can get his foot back that far. He can get his foot forward that much, which is actually quite a bit. And then he does have an ankle rocker, which works good. What do we got for articulation on Thanos? This is the Build-A-Figure re-released. So his head is on a ball hinge. He can look up about that far, which is pretty good. He can get his chin down that much, which is great. He's got good side to side. Nothing really wrong there. And a little bit of tilt, not a whole heck of a lot. In the shoulders, he's got ball hinges in his shoulders. He can get his arm straight out, which is awesome. He can rotate that arm all the way around, which is also great. He's got an upper bicep swivel that works nicely. Single jointed elbow, which is pretty limited. There's not a whole heck of a lot of range of motion there. In the wrist, he has a peg joint and a hinge, and he can get his hand to, that's pretty good. Pretty good curl. A little bit less for going up, but that's kind of to be expected with this piece. Moving down into the torso, he's got a standard hinge in that torso, and he's able to crunch forward about that much, which is pretty decent. He's able to crunch back that far, or arches back that much. He has a waist swivel that works good. Moving down into the hips, he's got T-jointed ball joints in the hips. Pretty good range of motion there, I would have to say. He can kick forward about this far, not quite 90 degrees, but that's okay. And can't really kick. He can kick back a little bit, but the skirt does get in the way a little bit. There is an upper thigh cut that works pretty good. Double jointed knees, those work amazingly. Very good. And ouch. There is no boot cut also, but there is an ankle hinge. He can get his foot back that far, and he can get his foot forward that much, which is a little bit limited, but not too bad. And then an ankle rocker also. So overall, he's got pretty decent articulation. Moving on to Doctor Strange. So Doctor Strange has his head on a ball hinge as well, and he's able to get his head up about that far. He's able to get his chin down into his chest, which is great. He's got good side-to-side motion. The cape is going to get in the way just a little bit, but not that big of a deal. He's got good tilt in his head, which is nice. He's got shoulder hinges, and he's able to get his arm out that far, which is great. He's able to swivel that arm all the way around, but the cape is going to get in the way for sure. He does have an upper bicep swivel. That works good. He's got double jointed elbows. Those work really, really nicely. And then he has a peg and a hinge in his wrists, but it seems a little bit delicate, so just be careful about that. In the torso, he has what appears to be a ball joint, maybe a double ball joint, but he's able to crunch forward that much, arches back about that far, which actually isn't too bad. He can swivel kind of back and forth like that. He is able also to swivel. The first time it was crunch. This time it's swivel. He can swivel side to side on that ball joint, which is good. Down in the hips, he's got T-jointed ball joints, but you're not going to get a lot of range of motion simply because of this skirt sort of thing. He's able, we'll leave that off. He's only able to kick forward about this far, which is kind of disappointing, and then he's not really able to kick back at all. He does have a thigh cut, but you can kind of hardly get in there anyway. And then he does have double jointed knees. Those work pretty good. He does have a boot cut. This time, this 1 out of 3 has a boot cut. And then he has a hinge. Works good. Gets his foot forward about this far. A little bit limited there. And then he is able to do a ankle rocker. So overall, articulation on all of these is pretty decent. Not amazing, but pretty decent. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the sculpt and paintwork on these figures. Again, we will start with Iron Man, simply because we can. Alrighty, so let's get in close with this guy. So I would say the paint is actually pretty clean on mine. I do like the little blue accents that they've got throughout. The sculpt work is pretty nice, I have to say. I mean, they did a nice job with it. It looks really good. My biggest issue is because of the electronics in here, which are cool. I mean, I don't know if you're able to see that his chest is lit up, but you know, it just takes away from the articulation. Obviously, you can open that up. I assume that you can pull out the battery and replace it. I don't know what kind of battery it has. The nice thing is that there is an on-off switch so that you can turn it off so that it's not going to waste your battery. Oh, maybe not. What does this do? Well, that seems ridiculous because it just turns on anyway. I'll have to look at the instructions and see what that is all about because it's not really doing anything different. So overall, the sculpt, paintwork, pretty darn good. Nothing too spectacular on this. Moving on to Thanos. Now this is the one that I really, really had to have. Obviously, the face sculpt looks a little funky, but that's because the movie made him look funky. So I'm not going to give Hasbro any kind of issues with that. The paint is a little bit limited. There's not really much for any shading. They did get his eyes painted nicely and his teeth are painted for the most part pretty clean. So that's pretty good. Down in the chest, there is some cool little design work here that is really, really subtle, which I really, really like. The sculpt work is nice. There's not any shading throughout the figure, which really would make this figure pop a lot. They did do a really nice job with the gauntlet, though. I think they did a fairly clean job. They painted the Infinity Stones pretty clean. But it looks like there's some shading of some sort on here, which is really, really appreciated. Down in the pants, these are sculpted very, very nicely. Again, good paint. The gold looks good. I like the tone of that gold. I do wish that they had a little bit of paint on the feet. These boots could use a little bit of paint to accent the sculpt work that they put into it. So in that respect, I wish that we got a little bit more out of this. This little skirt thing is a little bit more rigid than I would have liked. It feels like, it's kind of I don't know how to explain it, but if this was a little bit softer, that would go a long way in my opinion. But overall, I think the sculpt and paint work they did on this figure is actually pretty solid. All right, next up, and probably the best one of this 3-pack is the Doctor Strange, especially since they are doing a very, very nice job of getting this face sculpt to look like the actual actor, which is really awesome. We've got the Eye of Agamotto. I think I pronounced that wrong. But this is painted fairly nicely. You can see the green from the stone inside, which is awesome. This cape has really, really nice texture look on the inside of it. It could be a little bit softer, but you know, it is what it is. They did do a really nice job of sculpting it though. There's a lot of really cool textures on the back that are sculpted in, which is really great. Just a little bit of a black wash would have gone a long way to kind of give this a little bit more detail. But the rest of the body, they did a really, really nice job sculpting this. It looks so good. I think they just did a really great job. The only thing that, I wish this rubber plastic was softer. That way then it could allow for a little bit more range of motion with the articulation. And then the last thing that I wish would have happened is I wish they would have painted the buckles on the boots. That would have been nice. They did paint this little eyelet loop thing, but they didn't paint any of these rivets on here, which would have been nice. They didn't paint any of this detail. That again also would have been nice. I really love this effect feature that they sculpted onto his arms, which is really, really cool. It just looks super nice. Overall, I'm really, really satisfied with this figure. This one probably is the best of the three, then the Thanos, and then the Iron Man. Okay, let's take a look and see just how tall these figures are. They are your standard Marvel Legends scale, so they're not going to be super huge, but Iron Man comes in at about 6.5, getting close to 6.75 inches tall, so not super huge. Thanos is obviously bigger, and he's coming in, this is a little bit awkward, and he's right around 8, just a hair over 8 inches. Last but not least is Doctor Strange, and he's coming in right around 6, almost 6.5, just shy of 6.5 inches. And I'm not going to do a side-by-side comparison because these three basically represent the standard sizes of your Marvel Legends, so that's a pretty good side-by-side as it is. All right, and in this 3-pack, we get a decent number of accessories. Not a huge number, but Iron Man is the one that comes with the most, and he comes with 2 of these little blaster effects. Let's see if I can get that to focus. There we go. And these are really, really nicely sculpted. I really like them. They're fairly soft, so they're not going to snap off or anything like that. But they're nice translucent, kind of a blue look, and obviously these will peg into his hands like so. Come on. That way then he can do his standard blast effect and fly away. So those are really nice. He also comes with an extra set of fist hands. If I can get him to stay standing. He comes with 2 fist hands. Nothing special about these. You know, we've seen these fist hands a million times, I believe. So let's not talk too much about fist hands. Next up, Thanos comes with an alternate head, basically just a solemn looking face, and it looks pretty good side by side to his other grimacing head. It looks really nice. Obviously, I always like having alternate heads, so I am glad to have this one. Just a little bit of extra paint would have gone a long, long way on this head sculpt, but you know, I'm at least glad to have it still. And then last but not least, we get 2 accessories from, for Doctor Strange. He comes with an alternate hand. Let's focus that up. Or don't. So he comes with this alternate hand. Nothing too special, spectacular about that. And he also comes with this effect, which is really quite cool looking. And that is what this hand is for, so that he can hold this and basically make it look like he is shooting, doing whatever mystical stuff he is going to do. So overall, I am pretty darn pleased with this set. It's not, it's not the best thing in the world, but it is still really quite cool. Do I recommend going out and getting it? That's a tough one. I don't know. For the price tag at like $80 for this set, I don't know if it's worth that. But, it's still a really cool set, and if you don't have the Thanos Build-A-Figure already, and you really want this Doctor Strange, I would say go get it. It is not at all worth it for this Iron Man. I say this Iron Man, aside from, it looks good enough, but the articulation is pretty limited, and the little light thing is a little bit gimmicky, so for that, I could pass. But it is what it is. So let me know in the comments below what you think of this set. Make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.